How can leaders implement psychological safe environments that eliminate anxiety and create high-performing, inclusive, and innovative teams? Hello, I'm Chester Elton, and this is my co-author and dear friend, Adrian Gostick.
Well, thanks, Chess. Yeah, today we're going to learn what small actions we can take that will help foster a psychologically safe workplace. And as always, we hope the time you spend with us today will help reduce the stigma of anxiety at work and in your personal life.
And with us today are our new friends, Karoline Hilbig and Minette Norman. Karoline received her PhD in human genetics and then spent more than 15 years as a top management consultant with McKinsey & Company. Minette Norman spent 3 decades leading global technical teams in the software industry, most recently as Vice President of Engineering at Autodesk. They are the authors of the new book, The Psychological Safety Playbook. Welcome to our podcast, Karoline and Minette. We're delighted to have you here today.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us.
Oh, we're thrilled to have you both. And you know, we're really excited about this topic, psychological safety. And you know, Chester and I do a lot of executive coaching with CEOs and others in the C-suite. And you know, the four of us, we all know that psychological safety is foundational to healthy workplaces. But when we're talking to senior leaders, we're talking about productivity, hitting goals, the economy, etc. That seems to be what's on leaders' minds. So how do you identify psychological safety as the most important thing that you wanted to talk about? And more importantly, how do we get leaders to pay more attention to this?
So I think it's really important that we not think of psychological safety as, first of all, an end to itself. Like, it's not psychological safety for psychological safety's sake, but instead it's what it enables. When people can actually speak up and propose their ideas and challenge the status quo, the things that you just mentioned, Adrian, that CEOs and the C-suite cares about, performance, innovation, and ideally they care about their employees' well-being and engagement and motivation. All of these things are enabled by having a psychologically safe environment, because then people can propose those ideas that may actually challenge the prevailing thinking, but maybe breakthrough ideas. And people can perform better when they can be honest with one another and they can actually hold each other to accountable standards instead of talking behind someone's back. You know, like things like gossip and having the meeting after the meeting are signs of an environment that is not psychologically safe and that really doesn't lead to higher performance. But when we can talk about all these things out in the open, we can break through the hurdles, we can get through the hurdles, and we perform better as groups. And so it's really an imperative for anyone who cares about a successful organization and business.
Yeah, and there's now really a sound body of evidence and studies showing that psychological safety is really the one most important factor contributing and enabling performance, innovation, growth, and so on. So for years, the concept of psychological safety has been around, and for decades Amy Edmondson did fantastic research about it and wrote the book Fearless Organization. And then a couple of years ago there was a fantastic study done by Google, study Aristotle, and they really wanted to discover, now that we understand a little bit better what really makes a leader a great leader, now we want to uncover the secret of great teams. What makes teams really successful? And they looked at everything, many data, and they searched and found nothing. And then at a certain point they realized, we are really looking in the wrong direction. It's not who is on the team, it's how they work together. And they discovered there was just one fundamental quality which is absolutely essential for teams to be successful and which is underpinning all the other factors. And that was psychological safety.
Yeah, they're great studies. You know, it is interesting. We get a chance to spend some time with Amy Edmondson. And isn't that fascinating? Because we always think, it's the resume. It's the experience. We've got all these really smart people in the room. If they don't work together well, it doesn't matter if they don't feel safe, right? So
That's right.
I love that you number stuff. We're big on numbers. The 3 things, the 7 habits, the whatever. So you have 25 actions. That's a pretty good list. We're obviously not going to get into all 25. I'm willing to bet that you have a couple of favorites or some that you think would, really be helpful to our listeners. So, Minette, I'm going to start with you. Give me 1 or 2 that are kind of your favorites, and then Karoline, you can follow up because I'm sure they're a little different. Give us 1 or 2.
Yeah, and we have, as you said, we have 25 and they go in a certain order, but we wrote our book to be really modular, so you can just pick whatever speaks to you in the day and in the moment that you need help with. And so today I'm just going to pull out a couple, and one of them that I have just been writing about on LinkedIn, so it's top of mind for me, is managing your reactions. And what does this mean, and how to handle this? This is sort of smack dab in the middle of our playbook, so I'm jumping in, but it's a top of mind for me because especially when we talk about leaders, but it really applies to anyone, we all get defensive. That's just a normal human reaction, that when we're challenged in the workplace, our brain thinks that we are being attacked, and we respond in that defensive way, which is, our fight, flight, or freeze reaction. It happens all the time. And we can't differentiate as humans between what's a real danger to us and that we should be protecting ourselves from versus what is a social danger or a social attack. And so I was just talking about when a leader gets up and asks the audience, ask me anything. I'm really open to any ideas and any questions and any challenges. And then someone asks that one question and it completely triggers the person and they get defensive. And so it's not about not getting defensive, because we all will. But what Karoline and I really talk about in the book is recognizing that first of all, becoming very, very self-aware that we all get triggered, we all get defensive, and we have a choice in how we respond. And so it's that really split-second moment of self-awareness. My heartbeat's racing, I'm getting defensive, and I just take a breath. I just take that one single breath, and in that breath, I can calm my mind. I can now respond in a productive way, and it might be as simple as saying, thank you for that question. And when you say thank you, right, you're calm, and then you can have some dialogue, and you can even say, like, I don't have a great answer to that question, or let me have a moment to think about it, or can you tell me more? And all of those things are going to create a psychologically safe environment because you're welcoming the challenging question. But if you did the opposite and you didn't pause and you said, that's a ridiculous question, or how can you ask me that, or whatever it is, you're going to make the person feel terrible. You're going to embarrass them potentially, and you're also going to signal to everyone who witnessed that it's not really safe to ask me a question or ask me anything. Right. So that managing how we respond and managing that reaction is like top of mind for me, and it's one of the ones that we share in our book. We have a whole chapter dedicated to managing your reactions.
That's so great. Take a beat, right? You hear that all the time, take a beat. Karoline, which ones of the 25 is your favorite? I know it's like asking you which one is your favorite child, and we all have one, we just don't say it out loud. Which one is your favorite?
Yeah, all of them are great. I just pick really the first one we share in the book. And as Minette said, there is a certain order in the book. However, it's really written in a very modular way, so you can pick whatever resonates with you. But I picked the first one, because it's a very simple, small action and can have a big effect. And I just last week I had a great discussion here with someone, HR, in a big automotive company here in Germany. And he was just blown away by the pilot he ran, just using this sharing this small action with a team. And they used it, and it really completely changed the nature of their meetings. Okay, so we
got to know what this is now. We're all...
Please tell us, what is it?
The small action.
You're creating anxiety.
And really apply it tomorrow in your next meeting. The small action is this: ask the question, especially as a leader, what am I missing? So in a team meeting, in a brainstorming, whatever, ask the question, take the time to really hear the answers. And I mean, I must say, I have never experienced a leader asking this question, and it can be so, so powerful. Why that? Because it's a small thing. However, leaders traditionally are more trained in telling than in asking. So that is really a little bit shifting the typical leadership behavior. But then if you ask this question, and typically leaders ask, if they ask anything, they ask, do you all agree? Or is this a good solution? Or anything missing? Just these yes or no questions. But if you ask, what am I missing? You are already assuming you have not the whole picture. And this requires from leaders kind of humility to admit, okay, what I see is not the whole truth. It's not the whole reality. I see my perspective and I need others to contribute their perspective so that we as a team can really do the best work and come up with the best and most innovative product or whatever. So what am I missing? Or maybe that is a variation. Minette came up lately. What are we missing as a team?
That's terrific. I love that.
Yeah.
Let's go back to kind of this idea of psychological safety, because a lot of your writing, as ours is around the leader and what the leader can do. But, I think it might be a injustice to think that leaders have the only role to play here. So how can team members help create this kind of environment that you're talking about where, people feel safe to speak up and, mistakes are allowed, etc.? What's the role of the team member in this? Karoline, if you want to start us off with that.
Yeah, and everyone plays a role, right? And our book is really addressing everyone. So not only those who have a formal role of leadership, because that's our conviction. Every one of us is really influencing the environment more than we usually think. So in a way, we are all leaders. And team members play a very essential role in really creating this atmosphere, which is a team phenomenon. So, for example, how they react to their colleagues when they come up with unusual ideas or wild suggestions or something like that. So often we witness and see team members jumping to no, or immediately coming up with criticism and pulling apart the idea. And that's easy to do because our brain is really trained to see the negative and to see the problem and to see what's not working and why it's a bad idea. And then instead really shifting to a different attitude and a different behavior and really build on your colleagues' ideas. Not pulling them apart, but instead, I love this expression from Shazad Shamina, every idea has 10% good in it. So even the most ridiculous idea, there is something you can build on. Find the 10%. And if you do this consistently as a colleague, you foster a climate where everyone can contribute their ideas and be confident that the colleagues are not immediately criticizing, instead taking the 10% and building on it.
Excellent.
So that's one possibility, many more, but I'd love to hear what Minette is thinking.
Yeah, and I would just add on to that, because I completely think that's so important in how everyone participates in creating psychological safety. And I would take it back even a step further, which is just how people listen to each other, not even how they respond, but that you listen to everyone fully to try to understand them. Because what I have seen is that people. Of course, this is human nature. We're drawn to the people who are the most like us. And so we tend to listen more to the people who agree with us and who share our point of view. And often we just tune out the people or ignore the people who are thinking differently. And so a commitment to listening to everybody is really important, because what happens if you get ignored, for example, or constantly interrupted, is you're in this team and you feel like you're not important, you're not really a full member of the team. And then what happens over time is you stop contributing because you realize your contributions aren't really welcome. And so every single person, not just the leader, but every team member really plays just a critical and crucial role in establishing that you're welcome here, you're respected here, you're valued here. And we can't underestimate our individual responsibilities to creating that environment.
Yeah, such great advice. So we put so much on the leader, team leader, and so on. We've all got that responsibility, as you'd said earlier, Karoline. We're all leaders in some aspect. Okay, so let's get really practical here. Okay, so we've got a new leader coming into a fairly toxic culture, toxic team. What are some of the things that new leader can do right away to create that culture of psychological safety? Are there one or two first steps that become really key? And let's start with Karoline on this one.
Yeah, imagine a leader comes into an environment and they're toxic, and now what do you do? How do you foster psychological safety? And maybe it's crucial to remember, or to be clear about it. There is no kind of golden switch we can pull and then from one moment to the other we have the psychologically safe environment we want to have, right? So it's something which needs time. It's really like cultivating flowers in the garden. You really need to be careful over a longer period of time. You need to make sure the air is right, the soil is right, and so on and so on. So having said this, I do think there's a lot a leader can do. And I think, maybe the formula is that you really have an inner commitment that psychological safety is an important element for you to foster. So this really commit to fostering psychological safety and combine it together with consistent action. So these small things we share in the book, like we talked about asking this little questions on. So a genuine commitment, consistent action, I think over time will foster psychological safety, because the people who are in the organization and experience this toxic environment, what did they do? They kind of hide now because they learned it's not safe to speak up. So little by little they need to reopen, and this can't be done from one moment to the next. However, if you as the new leader really take action and encourage everyone, this will grow over time. And if you are the new leader, really be clear about that every single interaction, is it a one-on-one or a team meeting or whatever, is a chance for you to foster psychological safety.
Excellent. Minette, what would you add just real quick?
Well, quickly, what I would add to that is that I think the leader who comes in and really wants to make changes needs to talk openly about their goals, that psychological safety and inclusion and this environment is important, and we're all going to collectively work on it together. And honestly, we see our book as something that can be such a great tool, because a leader can come in and say, look, I've just found this book. I want us to use this as, a helpful tool for all of us. And let's just pick out one thing we're all going to work on this week. And maybe it's listening, or maybe it's holding more inclusive meetings. Whatever it is, we're going to commit as a team to working on this together, to discussing it, to learning together. And that's why we created it, is that we want it to be a manual that people can use day to day.
Minette, in addition to picking up the Psychological Safety Playbook, how can people learn more about your work? Where would you send them?
Well, we do have a website with a lot of interesting free resources. So it's the psychologicalsafetyplaybook.com. And then Karoline and I are both very active on LinkedIn, and we encourage people to follow us and interact with us. So just Karoline Helbig and Minette Norman. And then we each have our own websites for our separate business, karolinehelbig.com, minettenorman.com. And we love to hear from people because we're constantly learning as well about what else can we do, what else can we provide in terms of materials. And this playbook is just a start. We want to really build a community around this work.
Oh, that's beautiful. Good. Well, so really quick, as we're running out of time here, but I really want to ask you this question because one of your chapters is about taking control of your mind, which, as we all know, is easier than said than done. So how do you help people be a little bit more mindful to the things that they give their attention to with all the distractions that are going on right now? Minette, why don't you start us with that?
Yeah, and I'm gonna turn this over to Karoline pretty quickly too, because she is a Search Inside Yourself mindfulness instructor. So I'm sure she has some really, really good tips. But I think that the first part is really slowing down a little bit and paying attention to your own behavior and truly trying to, it's harder than it sounds to get rid of the distractions around you. But simple things like if you're having a conversation with someone, put away your phone. Turn off whatever is in front of you and just commit to being present and listening. And when you get distracted, rather than when you get distracted, come back and say, wait, hold on, I'm sorry, I just missed something you said. And ask someone to repeat something and make sure you've understood them rather than letting yourself get carried away. So that's one of my tips, but I think I'll turn this one over to Karoline, who's really a mindfulness expert.
Yeah. Yeah, I love all the things you mentioned, and I would add, it's so easy for us to kind of blame the external things for us to get distracted, right? The phone, the technical stuff, and so on. However, the real issue often is the internal triggers. And what do we do with those, right? We kind of choose to get distracted. We choose to pull out our phone and open LinkedIn or whatever. So how do we really better master our internal triggers? And for that, what's really absolutely crucial is to cultivate your self-awareness. And that is a topic we talk a lot about in our book. We say really become bravely self-aware is really key. And this is luckily something which can be really trained, like a muscle can be trained. So the more we really foster this kind of meta-awareness, oh, where's my attention? Oh, I drifted away. Oh, I'm about to get triggered into distraction, whatever it is. So really train this meta-awareness, because then you can master yourself. And it's like riding a bicycle and we fall to the sides. However, we keep the balance because we counterbalance. And the same with meta-awareness. We get distracted. Every moment we get distracted, and then we refocus again on the task we want to focus on. So there's no such thing as a perfect concentration. Indistractable. However, we really can kind of like riding the bicycle, learn how to refocus more quickly than in an untrained way.
Excellent. It is such. I was hoping you would actually give us advice on how to take control of other people's minds. And I think that would really be a wonderful leadership trick.
That's the next book.
Yeah. I'd like to ask each one of you, we're always interested in self-help. What do you do to keep yourself, in that good space and in that good state of mind, less anxiety? So if I were to ask you, Karoline, for that one thing that you do that helps you, and then Minette, if you could follow up, that would be great.
One thing, I have kind of a mantra I keep ever since I read Caroline Webb's fantastic book, How to Have a Good Day. And that's always assume good person, bad circumstances. So don't mix up impact and intention. And don't get triggered into reactivity because someone treated you badly or something. This is very helpful in every interaction, not only in business, but also in private life.
Excellent. Minette, what's your one thing?
I don't have a mantra, but I do have what I think really helps me stay grounded and keep my head clear, and that is movement. I have to walk, and in fact I think that walking is my meditation, is that especially when I'm feeling conflicted or anxious or whatever it is, I just take myself for a walk and I clear my head, and it can be a short walk or a long walk, but for me that helps me. It breaks through whatever I'm processing, and it often gets me to new ideas and a new frame of mind. So I'm a big believer in walking. I know that if I miss a day of walking, that it's not going to be as good a day.
That's awesome. Yeah. This has been such a great conversation. I've taken ample notes here. This is, I think this book is going to help a lot of people. One of the things I'd love to just summarize. I know you've been working on this book for years. It's finally out. Tell me, just like we're writing down an elevator, tell me why we should, what you've learned, something maybe that is unique, something that we should remember as listeners today about psychological safety. So, Karoline, if you had just a few seconds to get across a point that you think is really important to us, what would you say?
Every one of us can make a difference in psychological safety, and it's often the small things which count. Small things, big effect, every day.
Excellent.
Caroline just took the words out of my mouth, so I'm going to think of something else profound to say that she didn't say, which is that when you do not have psychological safety, you will know it, and your work and your life will suffer for it. And so it is really incumbent upon every one of us to create the conditions where everyone can do their best work, everyone can thrive, and it is through small actions done consistently, and you can have such a positive effect.
Excellent.
Well said.
Well, thank you so much for being our guest today. You can find all this great stuff on their wonderful website, which is the psychologicalsafetyplaybook.com. Follow them on LinkedIn. Go to their personal websites. Psychological safety, the key to innovation, high-performance teams. Karoline, Minette, thank you so much for being our guest on our podcast today.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thanks for having us. It's been a good conversation.
Well, Chess, that was, again, very practical. Lots of good takeaways from our guests. We've talked a lot about psychological safety, but a lot of times we have it as this, like she said, a means to an end. And it's that's the idea here, is how do we create this so that we can be more innovative, more focused more on growth, etc.
Yeah. Well, my biggest takeaway was right at the beginning where she said, manage your reactions. I thought, boy, that's not just good advice in the workplace. That's really good advice when you're talking to your spouse, when you're talking to your neighbor, especially when you're talking to your kids. That just take a breath, take a beat, manage your reaction.
Like every time I say, too much orange, and you get all defensive. Yeah.
See, I took a beat there.
I think that's worse.
Yeah, I know. It's funny. Heidi one time said, boy, that shirt of yours is pretty orange. And I said, it is a pretty orange, isn't it? The fact is, though, that, if you have that knee-jerk reaction, you're going to shut a lot of people down and make it very unsafe for them to bring to you whatever else is top of mind for them. So that was a big takeaway for me.
I thought that was a great to do. Another one was, what am I missing? What are we missing? I thought is even a better way of saying that. Okay, so what am I missing? He puts it on myself too as a leader. Is that no? Look, I'm not infallible here. I love that. It assumes that I don't have the whole picture yet, and I need you, my team, to help. I love that.
Yeah, asking, not telling, that more questions. I loved her expression when she said, there is no golden switch we can pull. I'm sure that's a translation from English to German, although it's a great metaphor, that she said, if you come into a toxic team, give yourself time, talk about it, make it a priority. understand that it does take time to create a culture. You're not going to do it overnight. I think so often we say, look, this is really bad. Hey, I read the book, right? We can have this done by Friday. I appreciated when she said, give yourself some time to turn things around.
Well, and they also said, look, this isn't all on you as the leader, too. It's creating a culture of this because team members so often perpetuate a lack of psychological safety, where the new person throws out this idea and they go, no, we tried that back in 2004. Didn't work then, won't work now. And I love the phrase, we jump to know. And every idea has at least 10% in it. So are we finding that? And more importantly, to create psychological safety, we have to actually listen to those who don't agree with us. How much of our lives now are spent only communicating with those who do agree with us? Never a good way to create innovation and growth.
Right. My last takeaway, and it was right at the end, I love the way she positioned it. She said, good person, bad circumstances.
Yeah.
You know, good people sometimes get caught in a bad circumstance. Don't label them as bad people. Yeah. People are good people caught in bad circumstances. It was a great lesson for me today.
Oh, it was. You know, there was so many good lessons. I hope everybody took as much away as I did. So we want to thank our wonderful guest today. We want to thank Brent Klein, who produces our show, to Christy Lawrence, who helps us find such amazing guests, and all of you who listened in. If you like the podcast, share it, download it. And we'd also love you to visit thecultureworks.com for some free resources, including the first chapter of that best-selling book, Anxiety at Work. Right, Chess?
Did you almost forget the title of the book?
No, I was just trying to build it up.
The suspense, the pause.
I was trying to build it up. When like Karoline did to us, what is it? Yeah, we were so excited for that by the end.
It was like the trailer to a horror movie, the way she was building that one up. And of course, we love speaking to audiences, and we do around the world, whether virtually or in person, on topics of culture, teamwork, resilience, anxiety in the workplace. So please give us a call. We'd love to talk to you about your event. Well, Adrian, another wonderful 30, 40, 45 minutes with some really interesting and helpful experts. I took away a lot. As always, I did too. The last word.
Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. Thanks, Jess, for your insights. And hopefully we wish you nothing but the best of mental health till we meet again. And so we're signing off, Adrian and Chester, until next time.